The phone vibrated on the counter, my sister's name flashing across the screen. I answered without thinking, balancing my wedding planner in one hand, a cup of coffee in the other. "Emma," she said, her voice hesitant, "I need to tell you something." I heard David's voice in the background, my fiancé's unmistakable laugh, the one that used to make my heart skip. Something cold settled in my stomach. "I'm at David's place," she continued. "We've been seeing each other for a while now." The wedding planner slipped from my fingers, pages of carefully selected venues and flower arrangements scattering across the kitchen floor. My coffee mug followed, shattering against the tile, dark liquid seeping into the glossy photo of the chapel we'd booked for next month. "Emma, are you there?" Her voice turned urgent. "Emma, I'm pregnant. It's his. I'm so sorry, but—" My voice, when it finally came, sounded like it belonged to someone else. "How long?" 8 months, she whispered. Through the phone, I heard the soft cry of a child, her 2-year-old daughter. The daughter she'd claimed was from a one-night stand, but whose eyes were a perfect match for David's distinctive blue-green shade. My knees gave out as realization crashed over me. Not just an affair, not just a pregnancy. 2 children, years of lies, family dinners where she'd sat across from me, holding his secret child while I talked about our wedding plans. "Emma, please say something. We didn't mean for this to happen. We're in love." I hung up, my eyes fixed on the diamond ring David had placed on my finger exactly 1 year ago today. "My name is Emma Winters. I'm 32 and a corporate attorney. This is the story of how I made my sister and ex-fiancé finally understand what they destroyed. For 3 weeks after that call, I shut down. My parents tried to reason with me, saying Chloe had made a mistake. My mother suggested family counseling. My father reminded me that we were sisters, that blood was thicker than water. What they didn't understand was that the betrayal wasn't just about David. It was about the elaborate deception, the calculated lies, the family holidays where Chloe had bounced her toddler on her knee, David's daughter, while accepting my help buying diapers and clothes, playing the struggling single mom. I deleted my social media accounts, changed my number, moved apartments. I built walls around my new life, making it clear to my family that Chloe was no longer my sister. "You can't just erase her," my mother argued during one of her unannounced visits to my new place. She'd gotten my address from the law firm where I still worked, using the emergency contact information I'd never updated. "She's your sister. She's family." "Family doesn't do what she did," I replied, keeping my voice level. "And if you can't respect my boundaries on this, I'll have to limit our contact, too." They thought I was being dramatic. That time would heal this wound. They didn't realize I wasn't just nursing my hurt. I was planning. 7 years passed. I built a successful law practice, married Luke, a kind man who understood boundaries because his own brother had betrayed him in similar ways, and had 3 beautiful children. Meanwhile, Chloe married David, had another daughter with him, and constructed a life on the foundation of my pain. I maintained one secret connection to their world, my cousin Rebecca, who never approved of what Chloe had done. We'd been close since childhood, and she reached out to me through my work email after I disappeared from family gatherings. Through her, I learned that David had suffered a workplace accident 2 years ago, leaving him partially disabled. Then just 6 months later, Chloe was diagnosed with a serious medical condition. Their finances collapsed. My parents and extended family rallied around them with money, childcare, and emotional support. I felt nothing, not satisfaction, not pity, just the flat certainty that karma had finally caught up to them. Then came the call from my mother. "Emma, please." Her voice cracked. "David's back in the hospital. Chloe's been admitted too. The girls have nowhere to go." "That's unfortunate," I said, watching my youngest daughter stack blocks on our living room floor. "They're asking for you. They need someone to take the girls. There are other relatives, agencies, options." "Emma." My mother's voice hardened. "These are your nieces." "I don't have nieces," I replied, ending the call. That evening, as Luke and I prepared dinner, my phone lit up with a notification, a Facebook message from an account I didn't recognize. I almost deleted it until I saw the preview. "Emma, it's Chloe. Please, I know I have no right to ask. I shouldn't have opened it. I knew better. but 7 years of carefully constructed indifference crumbled under the weight of morbid curiosity. Though I'd deleted my old accounts, I'd eventually created a new, private Facebook profile under my married name for professional networking, which Chloe must have found through mutual connections or perhaps through my cousin Rebecca, who still maintained relationships with both sides of the family. Emma, it's Chloe, please. I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but David's condition has worsened, and I've been admitted for emergency surgery. Our girls have nowhere to go. Mom and Dad are already stretched thin. We're sisters above everything else. I need you now. Please help my family. Just until I'm out of the hospital. I stared at the message, an unfamiliar heat building in my chest. Not the cold anger I'd nursed for years, but something hotter, more volatile. I typed my response with trembling fingers. We're not sisters. We haven't been since you chose to destroy my life. I will never help you or your family. Her reply came instantly. How can you be so cold? I set my phone down, my mind racing with all the things I could have said, all the pain I could have thrown back at her. Instead, I walked away, trying to recapture the numbness that had protected me for so long. Later that night, my parents called, then my aunt, then my uncle. One by one, family members reached out to tell me how wrong I was, how the children were innocent, how Chloe was going through hell, how I needed to put aside my petty grievances because we were blood. Though I'd changed my personal number years ago, I'd kept the same work number listed in the family emergency contacts, and my mother had clearly shared it with everyone. Luke found me in our bathroom at midnight, sitting on the cold tile floor, finally allowing myself to cry for the first time in years. They think I'm a monster, I whispered as he held me. Maybe I am. You're not, he said firmly. You're protecting yourself from people who hurt you deeply. But the children are not your responsibility, he finished. Your sister made her choices. So did David. The consequences of those choices aren't yours to fix. I nodded, but something had shifted inside me. The careful walls I'd built were cracking, letting in unwelcome emotions, doubt, guilt, and beneath it all, a dangerous flicker of hope that maybe, after all this time, Chloe finally understood what she'd done. The next morning, I made a decision, not out of forgiveness, but out of a need for closure that 7 years of silence hadn't provided. I drove to the hospital alone, my heart hammering in my chest. At the reception desk, I asked for Chloe's room number, half hoping they wouldn't give it to me. But moments later, I stood outside room 307, trying to remember how to breathe. She looked smaller than I remembered, pale against the white hospital sheets. Tubes and monitors surrounded her, but her eyes were open, staring blankly at the ceiling. When the door clicked shut behind me, she turned, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. Emma, her voice was hoarse, barely audible. You came. I remained by the door, maintaining a safe distance. I'm not here to help you. Then why? Because I need to understand something. I stepped closer, my legs steadier than I expected. All these years, you've never apologized. Not really. You said you were sorry it happened, but you never acknowledged what you took from me. She looked away. What do you want me to say? That I ruined your life? That I'm a terrible person? I want you to tell me why, I said, surprised by the calmness in my voice. Why my fiancé? Why lie about your daughter? Why pretend to be my sister while destroying everything I cared about? I didn't plan it, she whispered. It just happened. Things like that don't just happen, Chloe. You made choices, thousands of them. Every day for months, you chose to betray me. Tears slid down her face. I was jealous of you, always. You were smarter, prettier, more successful. Everyone loved you best. And then when David and when it started, it felt like finally having something you didn't. The raw honesty of her admission hit me like a physical blow. All these years, I'd imagined 1,000 reasons, love, lust, stupidity, but never this simple, ugly truth. She'd done it because she resented me. So taking my fiancé, having his children, that was your revenge? For what? For existing? I didn't think of it that way then, she said quietly. But yes, I guess it was. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in 7 years. My sister, my enemy, a woman who had shaped the course of my life through her betrayal, forcing me to rebuild everything from scratch. You know what's ironic? I said, a strange calm settling over me. You thought you were taking something from me, but you actually gave me freedom. If I had married David, if we'd had children together, I would have been trapped in a life with a man who couldn't even be faithful during our engagement. Her eyes widened slightly. Instead, I found Luke. I built a law practice that helps women who've been betrayed by their partners. I created a life that's authentic and honest. Everything my relationship with you and David never was. So you came here to gloat? She asked, her voice hardening. To tell me how much better your life is while mine falls apart? I shook my head. I came here to tell you that I'm finally free of you, of the anger, of the hate. You don't have power over me anymore. And my girls? Will you help them? No, I said softly. I can't be part of your life, Chloe, not even through your children. The trust is gone, and it's never coming back. But I am letting go of the anger I've carried. That's the only gift I can give you. I turned to leave, a weight lifting from my shoulders with each step toward the door. Emma, she called after me, her voice breaking. I am sorry for everything. I know it doesn't change anything, but I am. I paused at the doorway, not looking back. You're right. It doesn't change anything, but I hope you get better, Chloe. I hope you find peace. As I walked out of the hospital, my phone buzzed with text messages from family members, demanding updates, asking if I was finally going to do the right thing. I silenced it and slipped it back into my pocket. In the parking lot, I called Luke. How did it go? He asked. It's done, I said, feeling lighter than I had in years. She finally admitted the truth. And how do you feel? I thought about it as I unlocked my car. Free. For the first time since it happened, I feel completely free. That evening, as Luke and I watched our children play in the backyard, I received one final message from my mother. Chloe told me what you said. I don't understand how you can walk away from family when they need you most. I typed my response carefully. Mom, I didn't walk away from family. Chloe did 7 years ago when she chose betrayal over loyalty. I've simply accepted her choice. I hope you can accept mine. And I set my phone aside and joined my husband and children in the yard, leaving behind the shadows of betrayal that had darkened my life for too long. The family I had now, the one I had built from the ashes of Chloe's destruction, was the only family I needed. Sometimes the best revenge isn't making others suffer for their actions. It's showing them exactly what they lost through their own choices, and then walking away without looking back. My fingers trembled against the screen of my phone, my lawyer's voice fading to white noise as the text message from my mother burned into my retinas. Valerie, we've decided to redirect your trust fund to Pamela. She has 3 kids and needs it more than you. The transfer will be complete by Friday. A second message from my father popped up immediately. It's for the best. You understand? The adoption papers on the mahogany desk blurred before me. 5 months of interviews, home studies, and paperwork, all for Lily, suddenly hanging by a thread. Not because I couldn't provide for her without the trust fund, but because my parents had once again decided I was less deserving than my younger sister. Miss Daniels? My lawyer, Noah, leaned forward, concern etching his features. Is everything all right? I turned my phone so he could see the messages. His eyes widened, but then he caught my expression. Not shock or devastation, but a calm, knowing smile. You don't seem surprised, he observed carefully. I'm not, I replied, turning back to Lily's adoption paperwork. I made the necessary arrangements 3 months ago. My name is Valerie, I'm 32, and I'm a child advocacy attorney. This is the story of how I built a legacy from the remains of a betrayal. I'd spent my entire life being the responsible daughter. While my younger sister Pamela married young, had 3 children, and lived off our parents' generosity, I built a career defending children's rights and saved every penny I earned. The trust fund established by our grandmother before she passed was meant to be split equally between Pamela and me when we turned 35. But I knew my parents. I'd watched them favor Pamela since we were children. Every scraped knee, every failed test, every financial mistake she made was met with endless comfort and support. Meanwhile, my achievements, graduating top of my class, establishing a successful career, purchasing my own home, were acknowledged with dismissive nods and quick changes of subject. 3 months earlier, during a family dinner, I'd stepped out to the patio for air when I overheard them through the open kitchen window. "Pamela's credit card debt is almost $70,000 now," my mother had whispered urgently. "Richard's business venture failed again, and the kids' private school is threatening to revoke their enrollment." "What can we do?" my father had asked. "We've already helped with their mortgage twice this year." My mother's voice had dropped even lower, but in the quiet evening air, her words reached me with perfect clarity. "Valerie's trust fund could solve everything. She doesn't even have a family to support." The crystal wine glass in my hand had suddenly felt heavier. They didn't know about Lily then. They didn't know I'd been working with the adoption agency for over a year, preparing to give a home to a beautiful 5-year-old girl who'd lost her parents in a car accident. They didn't know because they never asked about my life, too busy solving Pamela's latest crisis. The next day, I'd visited my grandmother's longtime lawyer, Noah, who'd become a trusted friend over the years. Our families had known each other since I was a child, which is why I trusted him with both my legal and personal matters. "Is there any way to protect the trust fund?" I'd asked. He'd smiled, pulling out documents my grandmother had left. "Your grandmother was a remarkable woman, Valerie." He'd pointed to a clause in fine print. She added a provision that if anyone attempted to alter the distribution of the trust without both beneficiaries' consent, the entire amount would be immediately released to the originally named recipients. That afternoon, I'd transferred my portion, approximately $2.5 million, into a secure account, not for myself, but for Lily's future, and for the Children's Advocacy Center I'd been quietly developing. Now, sitting in Noah's office, I typed a simple reply to my parents' message. "Thanks for letting me know." My phone immediately buzzed with calls from both of them, probably expecting tears or arguments. I declined them all, focusing instead on the final details of Lily's adoption. "Tomorrow I'll bring her home," I said, signing the last page with a flourish. "Should I inform them about the clause?" Noah asked, organizing the completed adoption papers. "Not yet," I replied. "Let them figure it out when they try to transfer the funds." I smiled, looking at Lily's photo on my phone. Besides, I have more important things to focus on right now. As I left his office, my phone kept buzzing with messages from my family. Pamela was now involved, sending long texts about how she deserved the money more because she had real children to support. My parents alternated between guilt trips and demands that I answer their calls. I drove home in peaceful silence, thinking about the room I'd prepared for Lily, painted in her favorite colors, filled with books and toys. Tomorrow, she would finally have a forever home, and I would have the daughter I'd always dreamed of. My parents' attempt to control my life through money had come too late. I'd already built something far more valuable than any trust fund. The morning I was scheduled to pick up Lily, my parents showed up at my door unannounced. I wasn't surprised. They had always known my address since I'd invited them over when I first bought the house 3 years ago. My mother's perfectly styled hair and my father's pressed golf shirt couldn't hide their agitation. "Valerie, we need to discuss this situation," my mother started, trying to push past me into the house. I blocked the doorway, noticing their eyes widen at the colorful backpack and small pink suitcase visible in my entryway. "Are you going somewhere?" my father asked, confusion evident in his voice. "Yes, actually. I have an important appointment this morning," I checked my watch pointedly, "which I need to leave for in 20 minutes. "More important than family?" My mother's voice took on that familiar, guilt-inducing tone. "Valerie, your sister is desperate. The kids' private school tuition is due, and Richard's business venture didn't pan out." Again, I added quietly. "What's that supposed to mean?" my father demanded. "Nothing, but as I said, I have an appointment. We can talk later." I reached for my keys, but my mother grabbed my arm. "There's something you're not telling us. Those bags." Her eyes narrowed. They look like children's luggage. What are you planning? Just then, my phone rang. Noah's office. I need to take this, I said, gently removing my mother's hand. It's my lawyer. Lawyer? My father's face reddened. Why are you talking to lawyers? I answered the call, putting it on speaker deliberately. Hi, Noah. Am I still good to pick up Lily at 10 a.m.? Yes, everything's set. The adoption papers are all finalized. She's very excited to meet her new mom. The silence that followed was deafening. My parents stood frozen, their faces cycling through shock, confusion, and something that looked almost like fear. Adoption? My mother whispered. You're adopting without consulting us. I'm 32, Mom. I don't need your consultation or permission. I picked up Lily's backpack. Now, if you'll excuse me, my daughter is waiting. Daughter, my father's voice cracked. But what about the trust fund? We've already promised Pamela. That's not really my concern, I replied, locking my door. You made your decision about the money. I've made my decision about my family. You can't afford a child without that trust fund, my mother blurted out. You need to stop this nonsense right now. I turned to face them, finally letting some of my suppressed feelings show. You know what's interesting? In all these years, you never once asked about my savings, my investments, my plans. You assumed I had nothing because I didn't flaunt everything like Pamela does. You thought that trust fund was my only resource, didn't you? They exchanged uncertain glances. My father cleared his throat. Well, on your salary. My salary as a senior child advocate, plus my investments, plus the money Grandma left me directly in her will, separate from the trust fund, have left me quite comfortable. I smiled at their shocked expressions. Oh, you didn't know about that part of the will. Maybe because you were too busy helping Pamela spend her portion within the first year. But, my mother stammered, but Pamela wants, I corrected. There's a difference. Now I really need to go. Lily's waiting. As I drove away, I watched them in my rearview mirror, standing dumbfounded in my driveway. My phone started buzzing again, Pamela this time. I switched it to silent, focusing instead on the journey ahead. The adoption center was bright and welcoming, and Lily was waiting in the play area, clutching her favorite stuffed elephant. The moment she saw me, her face lit up with a smile that made everything. Every dismissal, every family drama, every carefully planned step, worth it. Ready to go home, sweetheart? I asked, kneeling down to her level. She nodded enthusiastically, then hesitated. Will they like me? She asked quietly. Who, sweetie? Your family. Will they like me? I hugged her gently. You and I are family now, Lily. We're going to build our own kind of family filled with love and trust and support. And yes, they'll love you once they get to know you. But for now, it's just us. And that's perfect. As we drove home, Lily chattering excitedly about her new room, I received a text from Noah. Your parents just tried to access the trust fund. The clause has been triggered. Should I proceed as planned? I smiled, watching Lily in the rearview mirror as she hugged her elephant and gazed wonderingly at her new neighborhood. Yes, I typed back. It's time they learned about Grandma's real legacy. The next morning, chaos erupted. My father's angry voice filled my voicemail. What do you mean the money's gone? Valerie, what have you done? My mother's messages alternated between threats and tearful pleas. Pamela's texts became increasingly hysterical. You've ruined everything. How could you be so selfish? I sat at my kitchen counter watching Lily eat her breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes, her favorite. She looked up, catching my expression. Are you sad? She asked, maple syrup dripping from her fork. No, sweetheart, I smiled, wiping her chin, just thinking about how perfect this morning is. The doorbell rang, followed by insistent knocking. Through the window, I could see my parents' car in the driveway. Pamela's minivan pulled up behind it. Lily, remember how we practiced for loud situations? She nodded, pulling her noise-canceling headphones from her backpack. Good girl, let's go upstairs and read while I handle this. After settling Lily in her reading nook, I opened the front door to face my family's fury. Pamela pushed past me, her face red with anger. "How dare you steal my children's future?" she shouted. "Interesting choice of words," I replied calmly, "considering you were planning to steal my share of the trust." "That was different," my mother interjected. "We were trying to help." "Help who, Mom? Pamela's kids or Pamela's lifestyle?" I gestured to her designer purse, her fresh salon highlights. "When was the last time you asked about my plans, my dreams?" "You never needed help," my father argued. "You were always stable." "Stable?" I repeated. "You mean boring, reliable, the perfect backdrop for Pamela's drama. Well, guess what? Grandma saw this coming. She knew exactly who you all were." I pulled out an envelope, the letter my grandmother had left with Noah. "Would you like to know what she really thought about your parenting style?" My mother sank onto the couch, her face cracking. "What are you talking about? Grandma didn't favor Pamela?" "She watched you do it for years. That's why she added the clause about immediate distribution if anyone tried to change the terms. She wanted to protect me from exactly this situation." "But where's the money now?" Pamela demanded. "You have to give it back." A small voice came from the stairs. "Mama, my book fell." Lily stood there, headphones around her neck, clutching her elephant. The room fell silent. My mother stared at Lily, then at me. "Mama," she whispered. "Yes," I said, moving to pick up Lily's book. "Everyone, meet Lily, my daughter." "You spent the trust fund on her?" Pamela sputtered. "No," I smiled. "I invested my portion in something much bigger. The Daniels Children's Advocacy Center opens next month, a place where kids like Lily can find support, legal help, and a chance at a better future. The trust fund wasn't just money. It was an opportunity to continue Grandma's legacy of protecting those who need it most." My father slumped in his chair. "All this time," I continued, "I was building something meaningful. While you were all focused on maintaining appearances, I was creating a real future, not just for Lily, but for hundreds of children who need help." "But what about my kids?" Pamela cried. "Their tuition." "Maybe it's time they went to public school," I suggested gently, "like I did. Maybe it's time they learned the value of earning things, not just receiving them." Lily tugged at my sleeve. "Can we finish our pancakes now?" "Of course, sweetheart." I turned to my family. "You're welcome to be part of our lives, part of something bigger than designer bags and country club memberships. But it has to be on different terms. No more favoritism, no more manipulation, no more taking me for granted." My mother looked at Lily, then at me, seeing us, really seeing us perhaps for the first time. "She has your eyes," she said softly, "the same determination." "She has Grandma's spirit," I corrected, "and like Grandma, I won't let anyone take advantage of those I love." As my family filed out, subdued and thoughtful, I returned to the kitchen with Lily. "Are they mad?" she asked, picking up her fork. "They're learning," I replied, pouring more syrup on her pancakes. "Sometimes people need to lose something to understand its value." That evening, as Lily slept surrounded by her books and toys, I received one final text from my mother. "Your grandmother would be proud. Maybe we could visit the Advocacy Center when it opens?" I smiled, typing back, "Lily would like that. She loves story time. If you're interested in reading to the children there." 6 months later, the Daniels Children's Advocacy Center celebrated its grand opening. To my surprise, my parents and Pamela attended with her children. While things weren't perfect between us, we had started to build a different kind of relationship, one based on mutual respect rather than obligation. Pamela had even enrolled her oldest in public school and taken a part-time job to help with their finances. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about building something better from the ashes of others' mistakes. Lily and I had created our own kind of family. And maybe, just maybe, we could help my parents and Pamela build something better too. But this time, it would be on our terms. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles, zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one. My throat constricted as Mom's words hung in the air like poison. Lauren, we've been talking. Nadine's had a rough time lately and, well, she's going to be moving in with you for a little while. The table between us suddenly felt vast and unfamiliar. I gripped my fork so tightly, my knuckles blanched white against the silver. Around us, Sunday dinner continued its choreographed normalcy. Same saucepan steaming on the stove, same polished dining table, same practiced smiles masking the manipulation. But something fundamental had shifted. Dad cleared his throat, already bracing for an argument. Nadine glanced up quickly, then away, picking at her food like it might bite back. The silence stretched as they waited for resistance they could label as selfishness. Instead, I smiled. Of course, I said lightly. If it helps Nadine get back on her feet, I don't see why not. The shock that rippled across their faces was almost worth the years of compliance. Mom blinked, caught off guard. Dad exhaled like he'd dodged a bullet. Nadine leaned back in her chair, smugness creeping across her face like moss on a neglected wall. None of them noticed how still I went after that. How quiet. They thought I'd caved. What they didn't know, what none of them had thought to ask, was that I hadn't lived in that apartment in weeks, and I had no intention of letting Nadine or any of them move into a place that no longer existed. My name is Lauren. I'm 28 and a senior accountant. This is the story of how I stopped being my family's emergency fund. I didn't wake up one day and decide to sever ties with my family. It took years of quiet disappointments, of guilt-wrapped favors and memory hole sacrifices, of realizing that in my family, survival came with strings, and being the strong one just meant being the most convenient to use. When I was 21, Nadine's car got repossessed. She called sobbing, said she couldn't get to her new job, said this one was different, she just needed a little help getting started. My credit was clean. Co-signing felt like a small thing. She stopped showing up to that job 3 weeks later, missed the payments. Guess whose credit took the hit? At 23, Mom called crying because the mortgage was past due. Dad had been laid off. Nadine had moved back in. I wired $2,000 the next morning. No one thanked me. At Christmas, Mom handed me a mug that said, "World's Best Daughter," and I almost laughed. At 25, Nadine got a DUI. First one we knew about, at least. Dad asked me to keep it quiet, said it would destroy the family's reputation. I paid for the lawyer. Nadine never said a word. A year later, when she got pulled over again and I refused to help, Mom called me cold. "You've never understood what it means to worry for someone you love," Dad said. "Nadine's life is harder than yours." That was the moment I knew, not suspected, knew. They didn't see me. They saw a function, a faucet they could turn on when something broke, a wallet that smiled. I started pulling back, politely evolving, changing topics, saying, "I'll think about it," instead of "yes." They noticed, and they didn't like it. One night, I found myself sitting alone in my apartment. The condo I'd bought without help, decorated on clearance sales, paid for month by month with spreadsheets and quiet diligence. I stared at the front door and realized I didn't feel safe in it anymore because it wasn't mine. When they wanted something, it was always ours. Just like my time, my money, my patience. So I made a decision. I called a realtor, sold the unit quietly, legally, without fanfare, moved into a small rental on the other side of town. No one asked where, and I didn't offer it. I could have told them, but I didn't. Not out of cruelty, not out of revenge, but out of self-preservation. Because sometimes when you grow up in a family that only remembers your usefulness, the kindest thing you can do for yourself is just disappear enough to breathe. The text started on Monday. "We'll bring Nadine's mattress Saturday morning. Oliver's loading the boxes Friday night. She's excited to finally have her own space." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. They were speaking to a version of me that no longer existed. Each message assumed I would open the door, rearrange my life, absorb the weight without making a sound. They'd done it before. They just didn't know I had stopped listening. By Thursday, Mom was texting me daily. Let me know if you need anything cleaned before she moves in. Nadine says she won't be a burden. She's bringing her own dishes. That one made me laugh quietly to myself over coffee. She hadn't washed a dish in her own apartment in years, but I let it all play out. I didn't push back. I didn't correct them. I waited. Saturday morning, I left early. Coffee first, then a drive across town to nowhere in particular. I walked through a farmer's market I didn't plan to buy anything from, stood in the sun longer than necessary. My phone vibrated in my pocket 3 times before I looked. Missed calls. Voicemails. I let the 4th call go through. Lauren! It was Mom, but not her soft voice. The brittle one, layered with panic. What's going on? There's someone here. Some man. He says he lives in the condo, says you don't live here anymore. I let the silence stretch. I wanted her to feel it, the unfamiliar space, the missing certainty. You didn't tell us, she snapped. You never said a word. No, I replied evenly. I didn't. There was scrambling in the background, the rustle of Dad's bags, voice sharpened low, Nadine saying something I couldn't hear. Lauren, Mom hissed. What is this? I sold the condo, I said simply, weeks ago. You what? I moved out, quietly. I didn't think it mattered. No one asked where I lived, so I didn't say. For a moment, nothing. I imagined them standing on that porch, bags on the ground, arms crossed, realizing they'd planned an invasion and showed up at the wrong castle. Then Dad's voice cutting through. You lied to us. You said she could move in. I said, if it helps Nadine, I don't see why not. I didn't say where. Another pause, a sharp inhale from Mom, and from Nadine, finally. So what, we're just, supposed to figure it out now? She sounded young when she said it, not angry, just lost. And for the briefest second, I almost answered, but I didn't. Because here's what they didn't know. I hadn't changed the locks out of anger. I hadn't sold the condo to make a point. I did it because I was tired of living in a space that never felt mine. I did it because I deserved to walk into my own home and not brace for impact. And because sometimes the kindest thing you can do for people who refuse to change is to stop making space for them. They thought that was the end of it. They were wrong. By evening, they were standing at my door. I knew they'd come. Even as I sipped my coffee that morning, even as I let their voicemails pile up, I knew Mom wouldn't let it go. She'd dig or call someone or show up just to prove a point that no matter how far I moved, I was still reachable, still obligated. By sunset, the knock came. 3 quick clipped hits, the kind you hear when someone's trying to stay polite, but is barely holding it together. I looked through the peephole. Victoria, Oliver, Nadine, and a trunk full of boxes parked on the curb like it was moving day. I opened the door halfway. You found me, I said flatly. Mom looked flushed, her lipstick faded and hair pushed back like she'd run her hands through it too many times. We tried calling, she said, voice tight. We didn't think you'd be here. It's my apartment, I said. But you said, Dad's voice was rising now. You said she could move in. Now we're standing here with all her things, and you're acting like we're strangers. I didn't move. I didn't raise my voice. I never said she could move in here. I said, if it helps Nadine, I don't see why not. That was at the old place which, if you recall, I no longer own. Nadine stepped forward then, her arms crossed, her cheeks red, but not from embarrassment, from fury. This is petty, Lauren. You always act like you're so above everyone, but this is just cruel. I tilted my head. You packed up your life and drove across the city to move into someone's apartment that you didn't even confirm still existed. That's not cruelty. That's entitlement. Nadine's voice cracked. You're my sister. Yes, I said coolly, and you've spent years confusing that with free housing. Dad stepped between us, his voice edged with warning. Enough, Lauren. We're not leaving. We've put up with a lot from you. You owe this to your sister. There it was, the word that always hung unspoken. Owe. as if every dollar I'd paid, every hour I'd worked, every sleepless night spent solving problems I didn't cause had been written down somewhere, part of a silent contract I never signed. I stepped back, picked up my phone. "What are you doing?" Mom asked, eyes narrowing. I didn't answer. I dialed. 3 rings then. 911. What's your emergency? My voice stayed calm. Yes, I have family members outside my apartment who are refusing to leave. They're not on the lease. They weren't invited. I'd like to report trespassing. Nadine's mouth fell open. Oliver swore under his breath. Mom looked like I'd slapped her. "Lauren," she whispered, almost pleading. "You're calling the police on your own family?" "I asked you to leave," I said. "You didn't." The dispatcher asked for my address. I gave it. Nadine's voice shook with rage. "This is going to ruin everything. Do you know what people will think of you? Do you know what they'll say?" "Yes," I said. "They'll say I finally stopped opening my door." Mom blinked. Her voice dropped to something smaller. "You used to be kind." I didn't flinch. "You used to notice when I was hurting." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy, packed with every ignored boundary, every swallowed word, every moment I'd said yes when I wanted to scream no. A patrol car pulled up 10 minutes later. The officer stepped out, tall and calm, her hand near her belt but relaxed. "Evening," she said. "We received a call about trespassing." "That's me," I said. She looked at me, at my parents, at Nadine, at the car with bags still in the trunk. "Ma'am, sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the premises." "This is our daughter," Oliver said. "This is a family matter." "And this is her residence," the officer replied, "which you're not allowed to occupy without permission." Nadine looked like she might cry or throw something, or both. "You're going to regret this, Lauren." "No," I said. "I've regretted almost everything up until this point. This is the first thing I'm sure of." The next day, I woke up to 12 missed calls. 5 from Mom, 2 from Dad, the rest numbers I didn't recognize. Cousins, probably, or family friends I hadn't spoken to since graduation. Then came the texts. "Why would you do this to your own sister? Your mom is devastated. Nadine sleeping on her couch. Is that what you wanted?" I didn't reply. I just scrolled. Eventually, I found it. A Facebook post from my mother. Public. 3 paragraphs punctuated by heartbreak emojis and a photo of Nadine as a toddler. We raised both our daughters to care for each other, but one of them has forgotten what that means. We're heartbroken that Lauren, so successful, so fortunate, would turn her back in our time of need. Nadine didn't deserve this. None of us did. Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments from people I hadn't seen since I was 12, calling me selfish, cold, entitled. It wasn't new, just louder. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then, for the first time in my life, I posted back. A simple thread. No flair, no hashtags. Screenshot. The $2,000 transfer I made to cover the mortgage. Screenshot. My name on Nadine's car loan, followed by the collections notice. A photo of the lawyer invoice from her DUI case. A timeline of every one-time favor I'd agreed to since I was 21. The receipt showing the sale of the condo. And finally, a message I'd saved. One Nadine had sent me 2 years ago, calling me a boring robot because I wouldn't let her crash for a month. I ended with one line. I didn't abandon my family. I just stopped volunteering for emotional debt. I turned off my phone after that, not because I was afraid, but because I didn't need applause. I just needed quiet. And for once, I had it. That night, the apartment was still. No noise from the hallway, no buzzing phone, just the quiet hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of old pipes shifting in the walls. I made tea, chamomile. It wasn't for sleep. I didn't need help sleeping anymore. It was for the ritual. A soft cup held in both hands, steam rising like forgiveness I hadn't asked for. My phone lit up once. Mom. Then again. Nadine. I didn't open the messages. I didn't have to. I knew the rhythm by now. Shock, anger, guilt, pleading. Always in that order. I blocked both numbers, not out of cruelty, not out of pride, but because not every door deserves to be knocked on forever. I walked out onto the balcony. It was cold, but not sharp, the kind of cold that reminded you you're alive. Below, the city hummed along. People moving, headlights glowing, someone walking a dog in a puffy coat too big for spring. A neighbor 2 floors down waved when she saw me. I waved back. It was simple, that small gesture, but it was more real than most of the things I'd done out of obligation. Inside, I turned off the lights one by one. The living room, the kitchen, the hallway. No picture frames on the walls, no family photos. Just quiet. Just clean space. I didn't feel triumphant or bitter or broken. I just felt done. Done performing. Done explaining. Done being the spare oxygen mask for people who never learned how to breathe on their own. Somewhere out there, they were probably rewriting the story again, casting me as the villain, or the cold one, or the ungrateful daughter. Let them. I didn't come here to be loved. I came here to stop pretending. I didn't vanish. They just told the story like I had. And now I've written it.